Are you someone that's looking to make the plunge into home ownership and have a place to truly call your own? Well, in today's video, I'm going to go over the top 5 mistakes that first-time homebuyers make while looking to purchase their first home. And this will make you aware of these mistakes so that you can avoid them when you get into your first place. Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Moynihan. I'm a local real estate agent and investor based out of Keene, New Hampshire. And if you are someone that's looking to buy their first home in New Hampshire or any home in New Hampshire, please feel free to reach out. My contact info is right here and of course down below in the description. I take pride in helping people find the house that will fit their needs and get them into a home that make them happy and fit their family. So without further ado, let's get into these top 5 mistakes that you should be avoiding while looking for your first home. Mistake number 1 is not talking to a lender sooner. So the lender is the person who's going to be looking at your financials and tell you how much you can actually afford in a loan. So you'll probably start off with getting a pre-qualification, which is where the lender basically kind of goes over simple questions about your financials to give you a good idea of what you can afford in a house. And then you move over to a pre-approval, which is where they actually take a look and start verifying some of the information that they tell you about and have you kind of start sending over some documents to make sure everything actually is what you told them the first time. And when you do have the pre-approval, that's where you're kind of showing that you're more of a serious buyer because you have sent them over the documents to verify all this stuff. So you'll want to start with talking to a lender because this will give you the price point that you'll want to be searching in, because you don't want to be searching out of your price point and looking at all these homes that you kind of fall in love with. And then once you actually do speak with the lender, you're like, uh-oh, I can't even afford what I've been looking at. And you kind of have to already start in a zone of almost disappointment because you were getting your hopes up for something you couldn't afford. So getting this down right away is super important because you kind of just have to know what you can afford when you start looking. In this, I'm just also going to add in, which is kind of like a mistake number 1A, you could call it. And that is not shopping around with lenders, because different lenders can offer you different programs and different rates and all that stuff. Like, not every lender is built the same. Yes, they might have similar loan products and similar rates, but one might be able to fit better for you. Or, I mean, you're going to be working with a loan officer. You kind of want to make sure you like working with that person because you're going to be talking to them a lot and going over your financials with them. So mistake number 2 is not working with their own real estate agent. And by this, I mean getting themselves a buyer's agent. Because sometimes, like, a first-time home buyer will go to an open house and love what they see. And they'll go to the listing agent at the open house and ask if they can put in an offer. And yes, the listing agent will be able to write you up an offer and help you out in the process. But the thing is, that listing agent signed a contract with the seller. So they owe fiduciary terms to the seller, which means that they have to keep the seller's best interest in mind in all times. So you're kind of getting second fiddle with this because you're not their number 1 priority. So if you get yourself a buyer's agent and get a buyer's agreement signed, that buyer's agent is going to be going at bat for you whenever negotiations come about, and they're always going to be trying to make sure you get the best deal that fits what you need. And also, having a buyer's agent will allow you to have like a sit-down conversation, and they'll be able to kind of customize a search and get you the properties that'll fit your needs and be able to kind of work just better to customize your search and help you throughout the whole process. And this is also another thing that could be interchangeable with number 1, because a lot of people say to go to a lender first, which is a good idea to know what you can afford. But sometimes you might want to go to an agent first. And the reason being is because a lot of agents have lender relationships. So a lender and an agent will like start working deals together. And a lot of people think there's like stuff going behind the scenes, and there's not. It's just like, if you find yourself a good lender and the agent has a lender they like to refer to, it's more because they know how that lender acts. So they know their time frame, they know how they treat their customers, and they know that it's actually someone that they would want to refer you to. So that's why I say you could either go to an agent first and find your buyer's agent, nail that down, and then ask, who do you recommend for a lender? Or vice versa, you could go find a lender that you like a lot, and you could always ask them, hey, do you have any preferred agents I should be working with? And also, I want to add this in because a lot of people don't know. If you get yourself a buyer's agent, the buyer's agent gets paid once a deal closes. So once you actually purchase a house, the buyer's agent gets paid. And the way that happens is when a listing takes place, a listing agent will make an agreement with the seller to list their house for a certain percentage, usually around 5 or 6% of the sales price. And then at closing, that will get distributed between the selling agent, the listing agent, and the buying agent. So even if you get yourself a buyer's agent and end up never buying a house, it's not like you have to have out-of-pocket costs to pay that buyer's agent. I mean, of course, you are taking up their time, so be respectful of it and don't just be wasting it just to look at houses, because that can get frustrating and a little bit rude. So make sure you're like actually being respectful with the time, but that is how the buyer's agent gets paid, because I know sometimes first-time home buyers just don't know that because, well, why would they really? So they get nervous of being like, well, I don't want to get a buyer's agent because I don't want to pay them. And it doesn't really work like that. Like, they get compensated once a deal closes. So that's why they're keeping your best interest in mind and trying to get the deal to close so that you get a house and then everyone gets paid and everyone's happy. Mistake number 3 that we see is becoming house poor. And what I mean by this is just kind of stretching yourself too thin in a couple various different ways. One is using all your savings for your down payment and closing costs. So you'll want to have that money saved up to be able to purchase a house. But once you purchase a house, you'll still want to have some type of cushion just in case something goes wrong, because you are buying a new house and stuff happens to houses. Maybe the furnace breaks down and you have to repair it. Maybe some cosmetic thing happens in the kitchen that needs to be repaired, or something happens in the bathroom. Any of those things, you'll kind of want a cushion just to be safe, that you don't have to throw a big expense on a credit card that you can't really afford at the time. Then the other thing is getting a mortgage that, yes, you can afford, but it's really tight on your monthly budget. So it's not really actually letting you have money to live and go have life experiences, go out a couple times a month for dinner, or go down and stay a night in a hotel in the city, whatever you want to do. But if you get a mortgage that is pushing your budget too much and taking away those things, that's what they mean by house poor. Is, yes, you're not necessarily going into the negatives, but you're also not leaving room for any other expenses at all. So you'll want to make sure that you have a comfortable mortgage payment. So maybe even if you are pre-approved for, say, $350,000, maybe you only feel comfortable going to $325 because you know you want that little bit of cushion every month where you can have the option to either save the money, which is always a good idea to keep saving, or you go and have a couple fun things a month. Mistake number 4, this was a big thing like last year and the year before during the whole housing explosion going up so fast, where it was lucky if you could even get an offer accepted that wasn't $20,000-$30,000 above asking, and that would be waiving a house inspection. So now it's becoming more of a thing where you see it again, but this was a big mistake that people were making because you're buying a house. So unless you're buying it brand newly built, which wasn't really happening in the last 2 years, you're buying a used piece of property. So you kind of want to have the house inspection to know what you're getting into, because a house inspector is going to go over everything from foundation up to the roof and everything in between to at least give you an idea of the condition of the property and any like major pitfalls that there might be hiding that you, as especially as a first-time home buyer, would even know to look at. So it's definitely a very important thing. And yes, you're going to have, this will be an out-of-pocket cost, where it's going to, usually around New Hampshire, it's around $500 to $600 for house inspection. And if you do spend that money and you find something that is a big pitfall and you want to back out of the contract, you don't get your $500 or $600 back. But I find it to be a great investment, because guess what? That $500 or $600 might have saved you from buying a $300,000 house. So some people are like, oh, well, I don't want to spend that money because I have closing costs and all that coming up. But it's like, yeah, but you want to know what you're buying, don't you? So this is another mistake. Do not skip the house inspection. It's very important to actually know what you're buying. And mistake number 5 is kind of not being confident / not being ready to put an offer. Not really sure how to word it, but what I mean by this is some people, you'll either see the people that are super picky, that want to hit everything on their checklist and of course get it at a price that's unheard of because they want to see the best deal ever. Well, chances are you're not going to find the best deal ever, and in that process of looking for the perfect house, you're going to probably miss out and regret not buying one that would have worked, that you liked, but you didn't absolutely love because you thought something else was going to come up on the market that would fit better. Well, sometimes you can be too picky. So you kind of have to find that middle ground where, yes, you want to stick to what you want in a house, but you also don't want to be so picky that you miss 3 houses that would have worked and now you're 6 months down the road and you're still not in a house. And then on the flip side is people that are too ran by emotions and just want a house immediately. So they kind of overlook these issues that are definitely not something that they wanted in a house, but they're like, well, we need a house right now and I want a house, so let's just make an offer. Even though they know that X, Y, and Z might not be what they were looking for. So you kind of have to find that middle ground where you know that, yes, these things will work for me and these things are an absolute no. So I always tell people to make a list of your wants and the things that are an absolute deal breaker. Because yes, you'll want to hit as many wants as you can, but also you kind of have to find that middle ground because chances are the perfect house isn't going to be found, especially in your price range of a first-time home buyer. It's just being honest. And of course, you want to do the best you can to find that perfect house, but sometimes you have to make a little bit of a sacrifice here and there. Or maybe you buy a house where, yes, it's not absolutely perfect, but if you do a couple renovations, it's going to be exactly what you want. So you kind of just have to look at that for you, but it's a lot of prep work to know what you actually will accept in a house. And that makes you more confident and ready to put in an offer where you see that house and you go, yep, this is the one, let's put in an offer for this. And you feel confident the whole time and not like regretting or second guessing yourself. So that sums up the top 5 mistakes you see a lot of first-time home buyers make. And now that you've watched this video, you're aware of these. So you can go into your house search a little bit more confident and know what to do. Couple first steps like finding a buyer's agent or talking to a lender, starting there, and then making sure you avoid the other mistakes and feel confident through the whole house buying process. And I hope this video has provided you with some value. And if it has, I would greatly appreciate a like. And of course, subscribe because I release weekly real estate related content. And once again, if you are a first-time home buyer looking to buy a house in New Hampshire, or anyone looking to buy a house in New Hampshire for that matter, please feel free to reach out. And I would love to talk to you and kind of figure out what type of situation you have. And even if you just have real estate related questions, feel free to shoot them my way. I always love to provide some value and help someone point them in the right direction to get them on the right path. And until next time.